Welcome to Module 5, the implementation module, Step A, on the use of time. Because you've already completed the most difficult steps of putting together your core comprehensive counseling program, this module actually truly is fairly basic. It's the big picture module to help you step back and make sure you're covering all of the bases needed to fully implement your comprehensive counseling program. It is also designed to give you specific information about two things: entering data into your use of time log and entering data for your results plan and your results plan report. We touched briefly on the use of time log in Module 2. You may remember that we strongly suggest that all of the counselors in your school complete the time use log for 1 week in the fall and 1 week in the spring. Now, as we've said before, collecting use of time data is a task no one likes. If you've done it before, you know what I mean. But it's honestly one of the most powerful action steps you can take during the school year to advocate for more understanding and support for your counseling program and for more time with your students. Of all the components of a comprehensive counseling model, school counselors tell us they dislike this task the most, but also say it is one of the most powerful advocacy tools they've ever used. That's because the results of your use of time analysis, which details how and where you spend the majority of your time as a school counselor, can truly be enlightening for a school principal or a community member. It is also the one task that counselors most often point to when they say they were able to get non-counseling tasks reduced or removed from their list of responsibilities. Logging your use of time for 2 whole weeks may not work that magically for you, no promises, but we do believe it's worth the time and effort to try. All of that said, we have made the process of completing your use of time log as simple as possible through our online system. To start, open up Module 5, go to Step A2, and click on the pencil icon, and you will see this page. Note that the title of this page says Time Use Log for Matt Fleck. That's me, and will be replaced by the name of you or whoever is using this to enter their time use log data. This is because each school counselor in your school will need to keep their own time use data for the fall and spring collections. Again, if it's just you, no problem. If you have several counselors at your school, each of you will have a separate time use log. When you click on the 3 green lines on the top left, you'll see a drop-down menu that will give you a bit more information about filling out your time use log. We suggest first clicking on Instructions for some brief descriptions of every step in this process. Then go back to the 3 green lines and click on Counselor Information and complete the 2 sections here labeled Contract Hours, Full-Time Equivalent, and the one other section labeled Log Setup. Starting at the top, Contract Hours, Full-Time Equivalent asks you to enter the total number of hours that you are contracted to work each week at your school, as well as your FTE, or full-time equivalency. For most school counselors, your FTE is simply a 1 because you work at one school. Now, we say on paper because we know a lot of you work far more hours than what you're contracted for. Note that if you are a counselor at 2 schools, for example, if you divide your time across 2 schools, your FTE would be 0.5 for this school. Remember, if you work at more than one school, you're entering data just in this time use log for this school only. Log Setup allows you to enter when your day starts and ends, and toward the bottom allows you to even change the minutes per time block for each entry. It defaults to a 15-minute time increment per entry because 15-minute increments are what ASCA requires for schools, which is handy if you ever decide to apply for RAMP. But we give you several other time increment options if you prefer an alternate. Now, before you leave, be sure to save any changes you make here. Going back to the 3 green lines, you'll see that there's also a Reports section, which allows you to print out what you've logged in for this week or what you've logged in over time. The toolbar also lets you connect to other aspects, including that purple support button, which you can click on anytime that you have questions. As you prepare to use your use of time log, go up and click on the calendar icon to choose the week you will be recording your use of time. Once you choose the starting date of the week, the system will automatically populate the log for the entire week. Below the date, you'll want to click on the bar that says Activity Categories to see an expanded list of the titles for each school counselor service, as defined by ASCA, and the subcategories for each. For example, under Direct Student Services, you'll see that an I is the abbreviation for instruction, the A is for appraisal and advisement, and so on. If you need more information about the service, simply click on the green information icon and you'll see ASCA's definition for each of the named services. Now, you may want to keep this list open as you begin to enter activities into your log. That's what I do, especially for the first day or first week. I find that keeping it open is very, very helpful. To use the log, simply enter a brief description of what you did at each designated time increment of your school day. For example, in the 7 a.m. time slot, you answered 14 emails, for example. You then use the drop-down box to code the activity. In this case, I would probably define it as an R for indirect student services, and continue on down throughout your day. Here's a handy little shortcut to note. If, for example, it took you an hour to answer 14 emails from 7 to 8 a.m., push the Shift key on your keyboard, then click into the 8 a.m. time slot, and it will copy the text that says answered 14 emails. Pretty handy. Note that entering time use data can be a bit complicated at first, especially figuring out which of the ASCA school counselor service designations align with each of the tasks that you do every day. But as you keep doing it, the process will get easier. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just do the best you can. If there are several other counselors in your school building, you may want to get together and discuss which of ASCA's counselor service designations or titles that you'll use for common tasks that all of you do. Doing this kind of inner office discussion will add even more consistency to your data. Continue to log your time and code your tasks for every day of your chosen week, Monday through Friday. If you need it, scroll to the bottom of the time use page and you'll see a place to add your time for any work you do over the weekend. Remember that if you go back to the use of time main page and click on the 3 green lines and view the drop-down box on the left-hand side, you'll see the option to print a summary report for this week, which creates an attractive printout with your total percentages by service category. You can even print a summary report for all of the times you have collected your use of time data. I must say, even though it's a pain to collect time use data, the summary reports do look good and are quite impressive. These summary reports will come in handy, especially if there's more than one counselor in your school. You'll want to get everyone's summary reports in order to calculate the average percentage of time spent not only in each of your school counseling service categories for the entire school counseling program, but for all of the counselors in your school and for the entire school year, which means you'll have to gather all of your counselors' time use data for both semesters and then average all of that data by the service category into one set of figures for the annual report table. Now, if you struggle with math like I do, see if you can find or lean on a teacher who's good with math at your school and beg them for their help, or click on the support button that we provide, and we'll be happy to give you a hand as you go through that process. Now, to wrap up this section, once you have calculated the time use data for the entire school program for the entire school year, go over to the help buttons on the left-hand side of the screen and click on the blue use of time data button, which will open up this page so you can add the figures to the table in your annual update.